Every space marine you have ever seen was once somebody's child. Getting from there to the thing in that armor took 19 new organs, a rewritten mind, and a lifetime of forgetting. And the Imperium would much rather you admired the result than asked about the process. Welcome, Initiate. 5 layers, working inward from the outside, and each one takes us further back, closer to the boy, and further from the weapon. We start with the plate they let you see, and what it's designed to hide. Then the child underneath, and how the chapters choose him. That process is not the same on every world, and those differences will tell you something particular about the Imperium. Past the skin, to all the organs they put inside him, and what those things say about who owns him. Deeper still, into blood he never chose, carrying a flaw he can never cut out. And at the bottom, what becomes of the ones who break? By the end, you'll understand the whole journey, from a boy on the dying world to something his own species would not recognize. In the first layer, you encounter over 2 meters of ceramite, a weapon that fires shells the size of your fist. And across the chest, the heraldry of a chapter whose honors run back further than any nation you could name. On 100,000 worlds, when that silhouette comes down through the clouds, it means one thing to the people watching: angels. That reaction isn't an accident, Initiate. It was engineered as carefully as everything else about him. Look at what the suit actually does to him. Regulates his temperature, filters his air, carries him through vacuum, firestorm, and plague zones that would liquefy you in seconds. Every step and every blow is driven by fiber bundles that mimic muscle and multiply it. The Imperium built a machine that turns a soldier into an engine of destruction. And it does one more thing that never makes it into the sermons. It hides him. The lenses glow, but they show you nothing behind them. No eyes, no expression, nothing of whatever the thing inside is feeling. There's no name a civilian will ever be told. He arrives, he kills, he leaves, and the people he saved spend the rest of their lives telling their grandchildren about the angel who came down from the sky. Not one of them will ever wonder what he looked like underneath. And that's the trick. A faceless savior can be whatever you need him to be. Hero, saint, proof the Emperor is still watching. Give him a face, and he becomes a person. He can be questioned. He could be wrong. So the Imperium keeps the visor down and lets 1 trillion people kneel before a sealed suit and call it faith. There's one more detail in that armor worth sitting with before we go further. Beneath the skin of his chest and back, they laid a sheet of material studded with ports, and every plate he wears connects directly into his nervous system. He is the suit. He inhabits it the way you inhabit your own hand, which makes the armor the last piece of him they installed. And whatever they had to do to make a human body compatible with a machine, they did it to a child. So let's take the plate off. Underneath the plate is a body. And that body started somewhere. The chapters recruit from whatever worlds fall inside their own territory, which means the boy's entire fate was settled by an accident of orbit. Feral worlds, where children hunt to eat. Hive sumps, where gang wars decide who reaches 13. Death worlds, where the ecology itself is trying to kill him. Those places do the first round of selection for free, and the chapters know it. What happens next depends entirely on whose colors he would end up wearing. On Fenris, the wolf priests watch the tribal wars from above, and when a young warrior does something extraordinary, they come down for him, usually while he is dying of it. That is the offer, Initiate. A reprieve from the wound that was about to kill him, on terms he does not get to read first. They take him into the Fang, and the first thing they examine is his soul. At the gates of Morkai,
The rune priests force their way into his mind and go looking for weakness, anything chaos could one day use as a handle. He does not get to prepare for this, and he cannot lie his way through it. The ones they find something in have their minds broken on the spot by the same priests in the same room. Whoever is left goes on to the trials. For the test of Mordecai, they hand him the cup of Wolfen, and he drinks the Canis Helix, the first and most violent strand of Lehman Russ's gene seed. What follows is always agony, and occasionally death. His bones twist and reset, his canines push out into fangs, his nails split into claws, and something older than language starts rising in his skull, telling him he is hungry, and that everything nearby is meat. The ones still breathing after that are carried a great distance from the fang, stripped to almost nothing, and left there. Then he has to walk home. Across the worst terrain on a world built to kill things, holding on to enough of himself to remember which direction the fang is, and why he wants to reach it. The ones who lose that fight don't die out there. They become Wolfen, feral, permanent, still on Fenris, and years later, some other boy taking the same test will meet one of them in the snow. The chapter counts this as an acceptable rate of loss.
Cross the galaxy to Ultramar, and the same process looks like a civil service examination. The Ultramarines run their trials on a schedule. Physical assessment, genetic screening, aptitude testing, all of it standardized, all of it recorded, exactly as Gilliman would have wanted. And here is what separates Macragge from nearly everywhere else. The boys who fall short still have a future. They go on to command the planetary defense forces or into the civil administration. Failing to become a space marine on Ultramar means becoming something else useful instead. Then there are the Dark Angels, who assess their aspirants for biological compatibility and euthanize the ones who don't meet it. In one place, rejection is a career. In another, it is a corpse. And nobody files this as a contradiction worth examining, because the Codex leaves recruitment to each chapter's own tradition. And tradition is the one thing the Imperium never audits. There is a stranger wrinkle under all of it. Plenty of these boys are never asked. Some chapters observe, decide, and take, and the child's opinion never enters the record. Others go further the other way, and raise their candidates from infancy, so that by the time anyone puts the question to him, he has never been permitted to imagine another life. Enthusiasm is preferred initiate. It was never a requirement. Whichever road he came down, they all end in the same room. Because surviving the trials only makes him eligible, his body still has to accept what is coming. The gene seed has to take root in flesh that was never designed to host it, and sometimes it simply refuses. The boy who outlasted everything his world could throw at him can still die on a slab, quietly, for a reason nobody could have predicted, and nothing he could have trained for. He was 12 years old, maybe younger, so let's follow him into that room. 19 organs go into him, and none of it happens in a single night. The work is staged across years, each implant given time to take hold before the next one is allowed near him, and the order cannot be rearranged. Miss a window, and the whole sequence fails. So the schedule was set long before he arrived, and it does not bend for him. Most of what they install is exactly what you would expect from an army. A second heart. Bone remade denser than bone should be. Blood that seals a wound before he can lose enough to matter. A stomach that neutralizes poison. A lung that handles atmospheres which would drown you. Useful, brutal, unremarkable. And then there are the progenoid glands, which grow slowly in his throat and his chest and produce the gene seed for the next generation. He is carrying the chapter's future inside his own body from the day it takes root. When he finally falls, an apothecary will reach the corpse before the enemy does and cut those glands out of him with a blade, because what he was growing outlives whatever he was. A dead space marine is a retrieval operation. That is the shape of all 19, once you stop admiring them. Every one solves a problem for the chapter. Not one of them was put there to make his life easier or longer or bearable. He was a resource with a boy attached, and the boy was the part they could afford to lose. He still cannot refuse any of it. He is somewhere in his teens. He has been awake for the parts they let him be awake for, and the thing they have not touched yet is the only thing that was ever really his. 19 organs. That was the Emperor's design, sealed at the end of the Great Crusade and treated ever since as scripture. Finished. Perfect. Closed. Then Amegos on Mars added 3 more, and the warriors carrying them stand a head taller than anything that came before. We will come back to what he found while he was building them, because that belongs further down than this. So let's go into his blood.
Everything so far was done to him. This layer was decided before he existed, because the gene seed is not his. It is a Primarch's, grown inside a human host, and whatever was wrong with the demigod comes with it. He inherits the strength, and he inherits the fault, and the only way to take the fault out of him would be to take him apart. Ask the sons of Sanguinius. Their Primarch died aboard the Vengeful Spirit 10,000 years ago, and the moment of it is still in their blood, a psychic imprint carried in the gene seed itself, waiting. When it surfaces, the Space Marine loses track of which battle he is standing in. He sees Horus. He believes he is dying over Terra, and he fights like a man who has already lost everything he came to protect. The Blood Angels call this the Black Rage, and their answer to it is the Death Company, the afflicted gathered together and sent into the worst part of the next engagement, because a brother who cannot be saved can still be aimed. They are not expected to come back. That is the point of them.
Then there are the Flesh Terrors, one of Sanguinius's successor chapters, who inherited a harsher strain of the same wound and lose their brothers to it faster than they can replace them. Their decline has been measurable for centuries. Everyone involved understands the arithmetic. Nobody stops. Now, hold that thought and go back to Mars. Because Belisarius Cawl spent 100 centuries in hidden vaults working on a project the Imperium had not sanctioned and mostly did not know existed, and when he finally produced his 3 new organs, one of them was called the Magnificat, a lobe the size of a thumbnail buried in the core of the brain, driving growth past every limit the original design permitted. Here is what Cawl found while he was making it. The Magnificat is one half of something older. The Emperor built a dual organ for the Primarchs themselves, the Immortis gland, the God Maker, and Cawl was able to reconstruct the right lobe from what survived. The plans for the left had been removed, deliberately and completely, from every Imperial record of the Primarch project. Cawl could not determine who had done it. He could not rule out the Emperor. So every Primaris Marine walking the galaxy tonight carries half of a deleted god inside his skull, and the other half is a hole in the record that somebody made certain would stay empty. Cawl insists he never altered the Emperor's work and only completed it. A great many people inside the Imperium remain unconvinced, and they cannot check, because the thing that would settle it was taken out of history on purpose. 22 organs now, 19 from a dead man's blueprint, and 3 from a heretic's workshop, and not one of the 22 was ever his.
So let's go and see what the Imperium does with the evidence.
We have reached the bottom, Initiate. This is the layer the Imperium keeps no records of, and that absence is the record. Start with the ones who never broke at all. The Grey Knights are the Imperium's answer to demons, and they are very good at it, and almost nobody in the galaxy is permitted to know they exist. Their campaigns are sealed behind clearances most Inquisitors will never hold. When an operation ends, the survivors of whatever they were fighting are frequently included in the cleanup, because a witness is a security problem regardless of which side he was standing on. They win, so why hide a victory? Because of what the victory admits. To acknowledge the Grey Knights is to acknowledge what they were built to fight, and the Imperium has spent its entire existence insisting that demons are superstition and chaos is a rumor spread by heretics. 1 trillion citizens sleep better inside that lie. So, the men holding the line get scrubbed from the very archive they are holding it for. That is the Imperium's instinct when everything goes right. Now consider what it does when something goes wrong. Excommunicate Traitorus. And they arrive as a declaration rather than a verdict. No court, no hearing, no moment where a chapter master gets to speak. Once they land, 10,000 years of service stop counting. The colors come off the roll, and the victories quietly transfer to whoever needs them more. And the brothers he fought beside for centuries become the ones sent to finish him. Because that is what loyalty means to an institution that is already decided. So let me give you the Soul Drinkers. They served for millennia, and their fall began with a relic, a weapon sacred to their chapter, lost for 1,000 years, finally recovered and immediately claimed by other arms of the Imperium with better standing and louder patrons. The Soul Drinkers fought to keep what they believed was theirs. When the Inquisition arrived and ordered them to stand down, they refused. That refusal is the entire crime. A chapter told the Inquisition no about a piece of its own history. Excommunicate Traitorus, hunted to the edges of the galaxy by men who had once called them brothers. And here is the part that should follow you out of this transmission. The corruption came afterward. Cast out, with nowhere in the Imperium left to stand, they drifted toward the only powers that would still have them. Mutation took root. Their chapter master's own body began to change. Everything the Inquisition had accused them of being, they became, years after the accusation was already permanent. And when it happened, that was filed as proof the Inquisition had been right all along. So, look at the whole descent now. A child on a dying world, collected while he bled out, or selected off a schedule, his mind opened and searched by men who could break it from the inside. His body rebuilt around 22 organs he never chose, one of which requires him to eat the dead, another of which guarantees he will never sleep deeply again. Blood, carrying a wound older than every institution now using him, and armor wired so far into his nervous system that the man and the machine stopped being separable somewhere along the way. At the end of it waits an institution that will condemn him for what it made him, and then bury the file. None of this was an accident, Initiate. He was built to specification, spent until the spending stopped being convenient, and then held responsible for a design he never saw. The Illuminati broadcast network doesn't tell you what to think, Initiate, but the next time one of them comes down through the clouds and 100,000 people fall to their knees and call it salvation, remember what had to be taken apart to build it. They were children. The Space Marine report is closed.